React custom hooks are a really awesome way to improve your state management whilst also making your code more readable, which is why libraries like React Use exist that give you a lot of these custom hooks right out of the box so that you just need to give them the information they need to function and then you can already use them. As you can see, there's a huge list of them in here and we're just going to take a look at 5, which in my opinion are the most important ones in here, to take a look at how this library works. So let's get started. Alright, so to get started, we first of all got our first hook, which is the useClickOutside. And here we can see I've now got a modal right here. And normally you'd need an X button in here and you'd need a window event listener to check if you clicked outside to close the modal. Here we just use a custom hook, and if I click outside, then the modal is closed. So let's take a look into the code. So as you can see, we first of all got a use state here, normal React stuff that just tracks if the modal is open or not. Then we've got our button that opens the modal. And the modal is of course rendered conditionally. The styling is done using a style tag because I didn't want to create an extra CSS file for this. And then we've got a ref, which is the most important bit, because this ref will be passed to the useClickAway function or useClickAway custom hook. And this hook will just run whenever somebody clicks on something that's not this ref. So if the element that's being clicked on is not part of the ref, then this function will run and then we just check, okay, is the modal currently open? And if not, then we set open to false. And this easily we now close the modal when we click outside of it. Awesome. Okay, next up, useDebounce. You might have realized that if you use a use effect on a text input, then your React app might get a bit slow. That's because the user types really fast and every change, every keystroke basically causes the app to re-render. So if you just take a look at this, then we can see, okay, I now type something up here. And only sometimes when the content changes will this debounced value down here change. So the way that we implemented this is quite simple. We've got a set text and text right here, which is just normal use state to fill in the value inside of our input so that this is always up to date. And then we use a use debounce instead of a use effect. So here we've got a normal effect, so what runs whenever text changes, and then we can just set an interval in here. So basically, if it were to run twice during these 500 milliseconds, then it will just wait for the next 500 milliseconds to elapse until running this again, which will of course speed up your application by quite a lot if this were to be an expensive operation and not just another use state. But in our case, for visualizing this, just displaying it in a use state is absolutely fine. Then next up, we got one of the coolest hooks in my opinion. This is useLocalStorage. So if I change something in here, like changing this value to bas instead of bar, and I were to reload, then you can see nothing changes in here because it's persisted in local storage automatically. I can of course remove the local storage entry, and if I reload, then I get the initial value, which was foo, but changing it again will just persist it in local storage automatically, which is really nice. So if I were to take a look at the application over here, so application, local storage, then here I can see my key is bar. And as you can see, the implementation is really simple here as well. We've got a value and a set value, just like in a use state. Then we've got a remove, which removes the value from local storage. Then we run use local storage instead of use state. Then we give it a key to basically identify it in local storage and an initial value that will be used if no value exists in local storage. And then we can of course just run set value, just like with a normal use state, only that's also persisted in the background, which is really nice. And remove will of course remove it from local storage. Okay, so the next one is really simple and something I can't really easily show you because it's basically just a useEffectOnce, so a use effect with an empty dependency array. But because oftentimes when you leave the dependency array empty and not put everything in there that you're using in the hook, your linter will complain, there's this useEffectOnce hook that doesn't take a dependency array. So it only runs once, like an empty dependency array, and you don't need to give it a dependency array because for something that only runs once, you of course don't need one. Which is just really handy, to be honest. And lastly, we got another really cool hook, which is usePrevious. So if I change the value up here to 2 or 3 or 4, then you can see the value beneath it will always be the value it had before. And if we just take a look at our code, then we can see that this hook is also really easy to implement. We just pass in a value and it will return the value it had before, because it just uses some logic under the hood to always track the value in the last render, which can be really helpful if you want to compare the value to the value it had before in something like a use effect. So as you can see, React Use provides some really cool custom hooks, and I've only shown you 5 of a really long list of them, so do make sure to check out the other ones as well. But you might not find your needs for data fetching in here. So how about you check out this video where I'll show you React Query, which also offers you a really cool custom hook, which is meant just for data fetching. And it's awesome, trust me. Check it out.